Wow, I'm so excited to be here today on the TED stage talking to you about talking, because I have always loved to talk. In fact, when I was younger, my father used to pay me not to talk. It's true, the longer I could keep quiet, the more money I made. And let's just say that was not a huge money drain for him. In my early years in school, we used to receive feedback about our behavior to bring home to our parents. Every 6 months, I got this book back home, and it said always, Berta works diligently and hard, but talks too much. In high school, my parents received the first ever written reprimand for my behavior, for my uncontrolled verbal outbursts, it said. In fact, I was considered to be so talkative that the teachers actually referred to the corner in the classroom in which I sat as the Balkan corner, because of all the noise there. As I progressed through my education and attended Norwegian School of Sports and Science, where I took my teaching degree, being quiet was a challenge for me. Here, we have to partake in this ridiculous sport called swimming. I mean, you can't have a decent conversation while you're struggling in that water. I, of course, flunked that subject. But with this being the first chapter of my life, I am happy to say that today I make a living out of talking. But even more importantly, I make a living out of helping other people talk more with each other. And that started, of course, with a man. In all modesty, I have to let you know that I'm married to the most wonderful man sometimes. Well, married all the time, but sometimes he is quite wonderful. He is. And by the way, he used to be a professional swimmer, so you can imagine where this story is going. But the thing that connected the two of us from the very beginning were the great conversations. We could just talk for hours and hours. And through our conversations, I came to understand that this man who loves to swim for hours and talk to no one was just about the wisest man on earth. And this is, of course, not the case now. But then, back in those early days, he was just so interesting and interested. He asked questions, he listened, and then came more questions. And so did I. And fast forward a few years, and we have 2 more kids in addition to the 2 boys that I had from a previous marriage. 4 kids and the 2 of us. And I realized that we spend much of our time alone when the kids were gone to bed, exhausted, on the sofa, in front of the TV, preferably with our phones in our hands and sharing more on social media than with each other. And I really missed our conversations. I still had a lot that I wanted to talk about. I had a lot of questions that I wanted to ask him, but even more so, I had a lot of questions that I wished that he would ask me from time to time. But most importantly, I missed him. The way he used to look and listen to me whilst we sat for hours over coffee, just talking with each other. The intimacy and connection that I felt when he opened up and shared his thoughts, dreams, and stories with me. The awesome feeling where in that moment I knew that I was the most important person in his world. But it was not only our conversations I was missing. I was also really scared of losing us. I had gone through a divorce several years previously, and I had diagnosed myself with PTDS, post-traumatic divorce stress. Anyone? Mm-hmm. I was terrified of once again finding myself in a situation where I would first lose communication, then connection. I had learned the hard way that when you stop asking, you stop sharing, and then you stop caring. And honestly, it's not that easy to be curious of your significant other when after a good number of years together you think and feel that you know everything about one another, right? I believed that we had talked about everything those first years, and I struggled with starting a meaningful conversation about us beyond logistics and how was work. So what I did was that I started to write down questions, because I felt the need to create some kind of conversation hub for the two of us, a reason for us to turn off the TV sometimes, put down our phones and talk with each other. I also felt the need to make the difficult but important topics in our relationship easier and more positive and more playful way to get started to talk about. But more than that, I felt the need to create conversations that reminded him, me, and us. Why are we together? Why do we love each other? And what do we really appreciate with one another? Why are we here together in this busy life? And what do we need to be working on to make it work for us now and in the future? So yes, I began to write down questions on small paper notes, and I put them in an envelope. And this envelope was quite full when I presented it to my husband one night. And over a bottle of wine, we started to randomly pick questions. And that night for us was just magical. It felt like going back to those first years when we were naturally curious at each other and wanted to know everything. We talked for hours, we laughed, we cried. Well, that was me. And I remember saying to my husband, this must be useful, entertaining, and fun for all couples out there. I also remember one question specifically. What similarities and differences do we find in our families? That question had us talking about our childhoods, our parents, why we are so alike and, of course, also so different. That question also helped us address our own parental values and how we wanted to raise our kids, which was, of course, the reason for me including that question in the envelope. That magical night, over an envelope and a bottle of wine, we shared and laughed for hours. We didn't even pick that many questions because every question generated so much conversation. And so, in 2013, I launched Fuel Box, the box of great conversations for couples. But what began with a feeling of disconnection became a tool for connection. And since then, many different fuel boxes have been developed. And you can find them in thousands and thousands of homes, schools, and workplaces, not only in Norway, but in several countries worldwide. Filled with carefully developed, open-ended questions, these boxes bring people together face to face for great conversations that develop and strengthen the individual and their connections through curiosity, sharing, learning, and growth. My personal needs were the starting point of my business, but it seems like I was not alone in having these needs. Because what curiosity, asking questions, and having these conversations comes down to is connection. We all have this need to be seen, to be heard, and to feel valued, and to have a sense of belonging in this world. So why have I become so passionate about this? And not only in romantic relationship. Because I have learned that connections is the most important thing all of us really have. Our connections are crucial for how we feel, how content and happy we are, for our health, and for how we perform at home, in school, and in the workplace. There's a lot of studies that show this, but I think all of us also really know this. And why do I think that this is an important and also a relevant topic here today? The fantastic technology that we are surrounded by today has made the concept of distance very different. The world has become smaller and more accessible in so many wonderful ways. TED is one great example of this. However, the question remains, has it brought us closer to each other? Has the technology perhaps brought us closer to everyone else, except those closest to us? Today we work and relax in front of different screens, and we are social through different medias. We hold these phones closer to ourselves than other people, and we ask far more questions of Google than we ask to each other. These phones, these mobile devices, they not only change what we do and how we do it, but they also change who we are, because we are getting used to being together without being together. We are more disconnected in a world that has never been more connected. We are connected, but we are alone, even when we are together. Experts tell us that the most important thing we can do to nourish the love for each other in our relationship is to cultivate the mutual curiosity. Whilst I did not know this back in 2013, I had for sure felt it. I had felt and experienced how the loss of curiosity for another person can lead to loss of connection. But it's not only in romantic relationship we need to cultivate curiosity. I believe that curiosity is fundamental in all human connections. So, what I have learned the last 5 years is that asking questions and sharing our thoughts, feelings, and stories with each other creates intimacy, recognition, respect, trust, belonging, and yes, even love. But what I've also learned, that it's not always that easy. What questions do we ask to start a meaningful conversation with someone? With someone we don't know, or with someone we think we know everything about? It might take a lot of courage to look someone in the eyes and ask them these kinds of deeper questions. But it might also take some courage to actually pick a question out of a box. We used Fuelbox Family with our kids and picked the question, who could play the leading actors in the movie about our life? My husband was really happy about the outcome of the following conversation. Me, not so much. You can, of course, see why the kids thought that James Bond should play my husband Thomas. My role, on the other hand, should be played by no other than Sid from Ice Age. And I know we can all see the resemblance, but it was not only that we look alike. Apparently, we also have the same personality. Yeah. Since 2013, my colleagues and I have developed thousands and thousands of open-ended questions for the professional arena and the personal arena. But we have not included the most important question of all in any of our boxes. So, if there's one thing that I hope that you will take home from my talk here today, it is to use this question more often with your partner, with your family, with your friends, and with your colleagues. Because there's one question that can change everything. There's one question that can really make you connect with other people. There's one small question that can make a difference. A big difference. And the most important question is always the follow-up question. A follow-up question is when you explore the other person's thoughts and answer with more questions. A follow-up question is being curious. A follow-up question can help you connect and reconnect with people that matters to you. So I hope that you will use follow-up questions in the break today and when you leave. Sometimes, not too often, but sometimes, I find myself saying something really clever about my journey into curiosity. And then, like any other person who wants to change the world or fuel the world, make it a better place, I, of course, make a quote out of it. But I really believe in this. I believe that that you get the answers, the emotions and connections that you have the courage to ask for. So, ignite your curiosity, ask follow-up questions, and fuel your connections. Thank you.